Well, hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Equip Podcast. My name is Brandon Williams, and I am joined today with a good friend of mine, also my brother-in-law, Chad Wiggins. And so really looking forward to this one. Chad and I have been friends for a long, long time. It's a pretty unique situation where we both really began to follow Jesus at the same time. And so our faith journeys really overlap a lot, and a lot of my growth is attributed to our relationship, and especially early on with some of those things we'll talk about later. But I'm really excited for you to hear from him, and I want to give you a quick bio on Chad because I think this will help you understand kind of why we want to break this up into two different parts today. But Chad is a lifelong resident of Bullock County. He's a Statesburian for sure, has been here all of his life. He's the market president for Synovus Bank in Statesboro and Metter. He's had over 30 years of banking experience and has worked in many areas of the bank, but has extensive experience in the commercial market. He's graduated with a BBA in finance from Georgia Southern University. Only took him 8 or 9 years to do that. It didn't take him that long. But his community involvement, both past and present, this is a long list. He's been super involved in our community, has been the chairman of the local American Red Cross, Wesley Foundation chairman, Goodwill of Southeast Georgia finance chair, volunteer coach for all 3 of his children in numerous sports through recreation department, downtown Rotary Club member and former president, actually is an elder currently here at Connection Church, has been chairman of the Bullock County Public School Foundation, president of the Statesboro High School Sports Boosters, Bullock County Chamber of Commerce chairman, and board member of Simmons Strong Foundation. Most importantly, Chad is married to Nancy Yawn Wiggins, who is my wife, Susan's sister, and they have 3 children and now 1 grandchild. And no way we're old enough to have grandchildren, right? But Chad, as I said, has had a lot of unique experience, and you see all of those organizations he's been a part of, and it's not just a lot of them that he was a part of those, it's also the position he held. I mean, chairman, president, all of these leadership positions. And so Chad, through the bank and through all of these organizations, has had a lot of unique leadership experience and opportunity, but also has had an incredible faith journey. And as I said before, our faith journeys have really not just overlapped, but really intertwined from the very beginning. And so what I'd like to do today is to start out with some leadership questions and concepts that I think can help us all, but then switch over into more of your faith journey and really looking at how God's worked in your life. And I think there's a lot of things that can help other people from your experience in that as well. So to start out with, how old were you when you started working at Sea Island Bank, which has now become Synovus?
Oh, that had been 1996, Brandon. So I've been 23 years old, I guess, 22 or 23.
And you've been there ever since.
That's right.
And which is a unique thing in the banking world.
Yeah.
Very few people stay in one place 30 plus years, but also know that's part of your personality. You're one of the most dedicated, loyal people I've ever been around, and it shows in that. It's why they celebrated 30 years of you being there not long ago. Where did you start out working at the bank?
Well, they actually, I started as what they called a management trainee. They, I don't think they really had a position, but Tommy David was the president at the time, and he said he'd give me a try. So they created this position where I worked on the teller line for a couple of months, customer service a couple of months, collections a couple of months. So they gave me a good background of really what the bank was, and it was a pretty neat experience. I got to see a little bit of all of the bank and to see if it was a good fit for me. And really to see if I was a good fit for them. And it worked out where I liked it and they seemed to like me. So then I kind of went on to the next role.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What was the step up from there?
So from there, there was a job that was called a credit analyst that we basically you sit in a room and you analyze financial statements kind of as a look back, ensuring like we would just look at financials and ensure that the credit or the loan facility that we've done is performing, that the cash flow is good. So you're analyzing a lot of financial statement data and having a look back, which is that's good training ground for the lending sector, which is where I went next, was into lending.
Gotcha. So what was the first leadership position you held at the bank?
Probably I got an opportunity, and this was a pretty neat thing where so I was a producer. So I was what we would call like a banker or a commercial banker, is which they're called today sometimes. So you're producing and you're trying to win business. And once I showed that I could do that fairly well, I had the opportunity then to manage another group of bankers. And so that was probably my first real leadership job in the real world. And that was probably 3 or 4 years later after I started at the bank.
So maybe around 26, 27 years old.
That's probably
like
right.
That. Yeah. So was leadership something that you desired, or did it just kind of get offered to you, put on you?
Yeah, I mean, everything, looking back, everything I always wanted more and wanted more, but yet at the same time, it was, with more opportunity came more responsibility. And so there were times that I knew I wanted to do more, but at the same time, I wasn't sure I was ready.
Yeah.
And the fun thing about it was Wayne Akins, who was the president then, he gave me that opportunity. And he said, well, Chad, I can see that you can do the job. You can produce on your own, but can you get other people to produce at the level you're at? And that was quite the challenge of going from being the person that did it to can you get 3 or 4 or 5 other people to run like you run?
Can you reproduce yourself?
That's right.
Through them? Yeah.
That's right.
What was it? What did it feel like? Because we've got a lot of young people who are emerging leaders in our church. And what did it feel like when you went from being a producer to the guy who was supposed to be reproducing other people? Like you became the guy, sort of. What was that feeling like?
Yeah, it was
as a young person.
Yeah, it was. That part was super challenging. And because what ended up happening was I was actually supervising people that were a good bit older than me, that had been in the bank longer than me and had more experience than I did. And so it wasn't to say that there wasn't bumps along the road for me and learning through what that looked like. But it was a challenge, right? It was growth. It was, how do I do this? How do I do this well? How do I, and some of the things that we were doing at that time were a little different than what those folks were used to doing, and trying to get them on board was not always easy, right? And so it involved hard conversations. And by nature, I am a pleaser. You do the personality assessments, and for me, I am a people pleaser, and I know that. So it's hard. I don't love conflict. I mean, not many people like conflict, but some don't mind it as much as others. And I fall in the camp of I'd rather not go down that road if I can help it. So having to learn to do that was difficult. But it was part of the growth for me that I had to just do it, right? Yeah. And then you work hard to, how do I do it well, right? And I think some of that you learn, and sometimes it's well received and sometimes it's not. And
I can imagine it's especially hard when you're having to have those tough conversations with people older than you who've been there longer than you. And I know when we started the church, I was 33 years old, which I think back to. And at 33, I thought like I'm old, right?
Yeah.
But now looking back, I'm like, I need nothing. Yeah. And I think about having to have conversations with people who were older than me, like some really hard conversations. Yeah. And, it's not easy. But I guess to encourage young leaders, just step into those things and embrace it.
That's right.
Because, and my next question is actually like, what mistakes did you make?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there were a number of them. And as when you say mistakes, a lot of what we learn is, or what I thought about was, how have I watched other people lead, right? And where did I see that it was done well? And can I emulate that? Not be those people, but take those traits that you see how we've been treated, or have we been treated well? How there are times in the workplace maybe we weren't treated like we wanted to be treated, and trying to maneuver through that, right? There are times where I probably felt the pressure of being the young guy and was probably harder than what I needed to be. There are things like that I think back, boy, would I have done that the same way? I don't know, maybe not, but a lot of the times I was, and it's hard to, you really can't second guess it, right? At the end of the day, it's about, do I have this person's best interest in hand?
Yeah.
And this is a coaching opportunity, and it's not personal. It's not that. We want what's best out of you, and here's some things that we think you can do differently or better. And for me, it was always, what's the heart of this? I mean, and I can receive that kind of coaching if I can trust that person that they want what's best for me. And I think that's what I always tried to emulate was that, hey, man, this is, we want to squeeze as much out of you as we can. We want what's best for you. We want you to be highly successful. So when you're having those tough conversations, if that's how you're coming at them, and it's in a loving way that, hey, we want to get the best out of you. We want to see you perform at your best so you'll be as happy as you can be. We'll be happy with everything. I think if that's the case and it's not out of any other ill will, or I don't want to see somebody else succeed, I'm going to beat them down, or any of those things, if it truly becomes a heart matter, really.
It really is. And I love that thought of, if you can approach it from with the right disposition and with the right heart and with the right intentions, you can kind of live with the results.
That's right. Pure intentions, right? I mean, and if your intentions are pure, then, man, that's all I can ask of anybody that's supervising me, and hopefully that's all people would ask of me, as I'm leading them.
When you face those conversations as a young leader, how would you say now, like, what have you learned from the beginnings of those conversations where you had to have the tough conversation? Because leadership is a lot of tough conversations, unfortunately. I mean, and I guess how has that been shaped or changed over the years from 26 years old now to, 30 years later,
Yeah. I think one of the things for me was probably going from dreading those conversations to being willing to have them, right? And knowing it's the right thing. Yeah. Because it's oftentimes we tend to, and what I think you'll see, or what I've seen over my career, is that a lot of times it's just easier not to have those conversations. It's little things, or it's or maybe you don't think it's, man, do I really want to die on this hill, or how important is that at this point to point out these little things? But and there's some discernment in that too, right? You don't want to micromanage or nitpick things with people, but I think just my willingness, I learned over time, and the more I did it, the more you have to do it, that, man, don't tarry over it, right? It's not to say that you don't want to spend time preparing and thinking through how do you do it and do it well, but to have those conversations. Yeah. I know for me, there were times where I knew somebody wasn't a good fit, right? They weren't real happy with what they were doing. We weren't real happy with the output we were getting, and being willing to have that conversation and say, look, I just think you'll find something else that's much better, and being willing to do that. And those don't always go perfectly, but there were times where people come back a year later and go, thank you. That was the best thing in the world for me, because they find a different path that is their path, and they're happy and they're successful and they're in a space that works well for them.
Yeah, and I've even seen sometimes where that conversation is a relief for them.
Yes.
And the other thing I've realized through that is, if I'm not willing to have that conversation with someone, I'm not loving them very well.
Yes.
It's
That's
just,
exactly right.
You know, if at that point they become the emperor with no clothes on, so to speak, and you end up in a situation where they're failing and they may not even know it.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
how are they going to get better
If we aren't willing to tell them?
Yeah,
That's
it's just
right.
like a baseball coach. If they see something wrong with your swing, but they're afraid to tell you, like you just struggle forever.
Yeah.
And so I think that was something that I learned was like the best way I can love them is to be honest.
Yeah,
with
you
them.
got to be genuine and honest,
Yeah.
and hopefully at the same time we're talking about having the hard conversations. Hopefully we're having the good ones too.
That's right.
Right, where we're willing and able to carve out that time, because I think for me that was also a little bit of a struggle along the way. Was, am I, giving the praise when it needs to be given?
Yeah.
Because for me too, it was, a lot was always expected of me, and still is. But so I expect a lot. So for you to do to really wow me, it's got to be something. But I have to be careful not to. One, you got to look for those things, and I probably don't do as good a job even today as I should. I know those things are important, but just being willing to try to catch somebody doing something good, and try and being able to go, wow, that was incredible how you handled that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good and I think too, having to realize that we're all different. So I know for you, it doesn't take a lot of praise.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of pats on the back. It's just point me in the right direction, tell me what I need to do, and I'm go do my job. And not only is there a lot expected of you from other people, but you expect a lot from yourself.
Sure.
And I think I'm kind of that way too. So I think that's where some of my high expectations of others can come in. But what I've had to realize a lot is not everybody's like me from a standpoint of not needing the
praise or the
attaboy,
public. Yeah, the public praise in front of everybody. Yeah, that's right.
And that's what I've had to learn is just because it's something that I need or don't need doesn't mean that the other people around me need it or don't need it.
That's right.
And so having to kind of look at that and realize, nobody ever gets tired of being encouraged.
That's right.
So,
everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Nobody will say, I don't do that.
Yeah, even if it's not your love language
That's right.
or whatever.
That's right.
It's like, but nobody's ever like, oh, man, she quit telling me.
Yeah, I'm tired of him telling me that I'm great.
Yeah, nobody does that. So anyway, that's really good. Who influenced your leadership style the most?
For me, I've had some really, really giants in my life that have been willing to mentor and pour into me. Wayne Akins was one, just in the business world. He was probably one of the first folks, and it was so interesting because he was very, very hard.
Yeah.
And you've heard me tell stories.
I was going to get you to tell one of those.
There's some good ones,
stories.
but he was so hard, and he would just chew me up, spit me out, and not in a negative kind of way. I mean, it felt it at the time, but it hurt my feelings sometimes. But it was all once I understood and learned that it was him trying to get me to be the best I could be. Then I became okay with it, right?
Yeah.
I was like, bring it on. I wanted that, right? And we want to be with people that want to be the best they can be. But in order to do that, you got to coach them. And Wayne coached. He was tough, and just so many things. I give you story after story about how he poured into me, right? And half time I didn't even know what he was doing, but looking back, I can't owe enough to him. And then. But that hardness, he taught me things that maybe I should have known as a young person, but I didn't know. I mean, it was simple things. Like I've told you the story about the time I showed up late to his meeting. And I came to a team meeting, and all of the officers are there. Well, I came in about 2 minutes late, and he had started, and no big deal. I went to the meeting. Well, I went to my office. The phone rang. He called me, and he said, please come to my office. And I said, yes, sir. So I went down, had no idea. I thought he needed me to do something. Well, he sat me down, and he looked at me, and he said, never be late to my meeting again. And I kind of thought he was kidding. I didn't really. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm serious. Never be late again. And he was tapping on the table, and I was like, oh. It's like, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I went back. I was like, boy, he was serious about that. Well, it wasn't 2 weeks later. I remember I was at home, and we met on Wednesday mornings, and I hit my snooze.
Oh, no.
And I looked at the clock, and it was like 7. The meeting was like at 8 or something. It was 7:50 or 7:40 something. And I'm like, I jumped up. You know that panic when you're late for something. I'm throwing clothes on. I just didn't. I ran. I got to the meeting. I was late.
Oh, God.
I slipped in about a minute or two late. He had already started. And I'm sitting there going, oh, God, I wonder if he saw me. I wonder if he saw me. I didn't hear anything he said in the meeting. I was worried, did he catch me or not?
Thinking about to get fired.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on? And so everything was fine. Well, I went to my office. I didn't even sit down. Bring. Y'all, it was like it was going to the principal's office. It was incredible. I was so worried about it and anxious. And I'm like, I said, yes, sir. He said, please come to my office. Y'all, that walk was like the walk of shame. I walked, man, and my heart was racing. And I got in that office, and he said, I thought I told you not to be late. And I said, yes, sir, I know. He said, quit saying you know and do it. And, man, I walked out of there. I was like, holy cow. I mean, I was just flabbergasted. I was like, man, what am I going to do? Well, what I've done is I'm not late.
That's right.
I'm not late anymore.
Yeah.
That's just, it changed my DNA. And, and he explained why, and his whole thing was, when you're late, you're signaling to me that this meeting's not important, these things. So there's a reason behind those things, right? But it was one of those many instances that I was held accountable.
Yeah.
And there was purpose in that, right? And thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because I never knew that as a young, I didn't think there was a big deal. But I got countless stories like that where he was just willing to challenge me and squeeze what he could out of me. And I've had others. Darren Burnett has been a really good boss. He supervised me over a period of time too. Once Wayne took another job within the company, and he was good. And he was different in a way. We were more peers, but he was really good to me. And the things I learned from him, his relational things were so good, and how he connected people and cared about people. Man, everybody in the bank, Darren knew and cared about and had a connection.
That's good.
And not that Wayne didn't, but Darren just was really good at that piece. Mm-hmm. And so you just pick up these different things from these different people. And, of course, we had Mr. Bruce.
Absolutely.
Our father-in-law, Mr. Bruce Shawn, that was just the rock. You can just pick up so many things from watching him and just being around him, and how influential he was in a way that just very humble, very quietly went along and just impacted people. And you're talking about caring for people. He truly cared as well. Just had a unique ability to connect with people.
Yeah, he really did. He was, of course, both of us were very fortunate to get to spend so much time with him through the years as we were dating his daughters through high school, and then married into the family and married into a great family, and learned so much from him. And, and I said this at his funeral, but he was such a definition of meekness when you think about power under control.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there were so many times something would happen, and I would be like, just please get mad.
Yeah.
Just get mad. And he'd just be like, it'd be all right, and just go right on about his business. And, and certainly, I learned a lot. I don't know how much of that I've applied sometimes.
I get it. I'm the same way. But you watch people, the trust they had in him. Just the wisdom, he could, just countless people that we know and us too, you just went to him, right? Looking for guidance, looking for wise counsel. And that is pretty remarkable. Yeah,
pretty special. Yeah. That we were able to glean from that as long as we were able to. Those are really good things. And it's interesting to hear how most good leaders that I talk to have had the benefit of multiple good leaders in their life.
No doubt.
And, and you said something that I think is huge for any young leader that's listening is pay attention to other leaders.
No
and
doubt.
because even if they're not a great leader, you're going to learn as much from the bad
That's right.
and what not to do as you do from the good. And so
Agreed.
there's always something to learn.
No doubt. No doubt.
Watch what the good ones do, and then also learn from what the ones that aren't so successful.
That's right. And I think that's a huge thing, right? You take the things that you really like and see from the ones that you highly respect and you want to emulate, but you probably learn equally as much from if you ever run into one that's not, that doesn't do quite what you want.
That's
and you go,
right.
man, I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
Or I promise I'm never going to do it that way. So that's a great point.
And I would encourage too, if you have a boss as a young person who is hard on you, just embrace it. Like you can do one of two things. You can get better or quit.
Yeah.
And, get better.
Yeah.
Like it's an opportunity.
It's funny you say that.
way.
Wayne about did that to me the first probably month I was there. I didn't really understand at all what was happening, but he challenged me to a point. I don't know what I did, but he got on me so bad. I literally that night I went home. I actually went home and talked to my dad about it. It bothered me so bad because he was so harsh, and I didn't really know if I was in the right spot.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of at that crossroads of, man, is this guy who I really want to be working with? And what I had the revelation of was I'm going to prove to him that I'm not whoever's gotten in his head or said something about that I'm going to be his guy and I can do this. And I'm going to crush this job. And I did. I made my mind up, and it was interesting. I don't know if he was just seeing what I was made of or what,
Sure.
where you going to get on board? Because we did have a transition of leadership, and I was really good friends and worked hard for the guy that was there, and Wayne was the new guy, so I guess he might have been. It's funny when I talked to Wayne about all this, he didn't remember any of it. It was life impacting to me, but for him it must have been another day.
Yeah. You were just like the fifth or sixth one
Yeah, I
he'd
must
done
have
that
been,
with that morning.
He swears, "Are you sure I did all that?" I'm like, "Yes, you did it, man. It's scarred in my brain." But but I did. I had to do that. I had to make a decision about, man, can I do this, or am I willing to do whatever it takes to prove him that, man, whatever he's thought or that first premonition is not right, that I want to be on board. I'm going to be a great team player and a teammate and do all the things he wants to do. And I did. I made my mind. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Right. I'm glad I did. And look, there's times I think when people can get in a position that it's just not the right fit, or that might not be the right boss, and there's a time to move on. I think I was fortunate that he was the right guy because he really was a really solid man of God, and his integrity was pretty incredible too.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that.
And I would say discern if you're in the right place or not. Don't run from it just because it's hard.
That's right. That's a great point. That's a better way of saying everything I just said.
But
right?
I'm
no,
just,
that's
just
what
to
I'm
say,
saying. But that's a succinct way to say it.
Yeah, it's just discern if it's not the right fit. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But don't run from hard things.
No.
Like embrace them because they're going to make you better.
Yeah, and because that's where we grow. Right? We grow in the hard times.
Adversity.
Yeah, we grow in those times, and we really, it stretches us, and I definitely know that. I mean, I enjoy when it's not super hard. Those are nice times too, but when it gets tough is when we see what we're made of. I always said that, we see what comes out when we get squeezed, right?
Yeah.
Who are we when it gets tough?
100%. And I think about the hardest seasons of my life, and I don't really want to go back through them, but I wouldn't trade what I learned from them.
That's right.
So I think that's really important. Speaking of tough seasons, what do you think back to, like, as maybe one of the toughest seasons of leadership for you?
We went through the Great Recession in 08, 09, and it was very difficult in the banking business. And there was not a lot to be upbeat about.
Yeah.
And for me, I remember that time because every day I had to wake up, and you're leading other people, and you have to choose to do your best and to come in with a good attitude and to be positive and to be upbeat. And it's kind of like faith, right? It was a time of, I had to really challenge myself that, man, am I going to let this worry and this anxiety show out, or am I going to be the beacon of light, right? Am I going to have faith, even though I can't really see where we're going, right? I can't see it, but I'm choosing to believe that we're going to make it through, and that it's going to work. And that was hard. Yeah. That was very taxing. It was hard, and everything you are hearing is not good, and you're having to have hard conversation with clients. It's just hard for everybody. It's not just hard for us in the banking profession. All of our clients are impacted, right? So it's just a tough season, and but just choosing to try to be your best through that, right? And try to encourage your team and empathize. Man, it is tough, but at the same time, let's. And I'm not saying fake it, right? But and we just have to choose it, man. It's going to be the best day I can make it, right? I'm not going to get sucked in by the negativity, or, man, we're in the doldrums. It's just choosing to believe that this is going to work.
Yeah, I mean, you can choose to believe it's going to work and keep stepping, or you can just wilt and die.
That's right.
I mean, those are basically the two options.
That's right.
And you just always take that next step.
That's right.
You know,
that was a tough time for me. But man, it's been good. And again, what helps too is if you've got great people around you, and you talk about leading. And man, if you surround yourself with those right people, they too they'll gravitate toward that, right? And you begin to walk through those tough times together. Yeah. And I think that I've had some other tough times, and I've watched probably what there was another tough time that I remember that the people around me, my peers and colleagues, that, man, they rose up and they said, man, we got you on this. We got your back on these things. And they did. And we plowed through it. If I was out there by myself, I probably wouldn't have. It would have been a struggle. So having those kind of people around you that are there when you need them, that's pretty meaningful looking back.
And this would be a whole nother podcast in and of itself, but a lot of times you hear people say leadership is lonely. But after, being in the position I've been in and leading business and the church now for close to 20 years, honestly, what I found is if leadership's lonely, it's because it's your fault. Like you've isolated yourself to some degree, and there's probably varying reasons for that, but it doesn't have to be. And it comes back to a lot of what we talk about with churches. We need community. We need people that are there with us, and finding those right people. And so people talk about it being lonely at the top. Well, bring somebody with you.
That's good.
And it's not so lonely. So, but it is easy to find yourself isolated
it's funny
if
you
you're
say
not
that, because we've talked about that, right?
Been there.
There are days where you go, wow, or those decisions feel like they're all on you, so that's good though. That is good.
And it may not even be somebody within your organization.
That's right.
But somebody.
That's right.
That you can talk to and get wisdom from, or talk it through, or get a different perspective, or just get encouragement, or whatever, is super important if you're leading anything, because you are faced with challenging decisions, challenging circumstances, and there's times when nobody else can make those decisions.
That's right.
And ultimately it's going to come back to you. And so definitely can be really, really challenging. One of the challenging things, I think, and I feel like I'm seeing the wrong choice in this more and more today in our culture, But one of the more challenging things I think for a leader to choose between is popularity and their conviction, or popularity and what's right. And I feel like in our culture today that we're seeing more and more people choose the popular thing
Yeah.
versus doing the right thing, or the thing that they truly have a conviction about. Because there's a lot of people that I'll talk to or I'll hear, and convictionally they express this, but then when it's public, they've done this, and I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah.
And so, and I know for you, you've had to make decisions that, you had to choose between what's popular and what your true conviction was. As you said, what's gonna please people versus what's the right thing to do. And when that's happened with you, one, how did that feel for you in those moments?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a tough spot, right, for all of us. But it's certainly, and I think about for me personally, being such a pleaser, that is extra difficult for me. And I say that everybody may be this way, but I know for me, but I think too for me, as I've grown and matured, that you just realize sometimes that's just the way it's got to be, right? And it's not going to make everybody happy, and it's going to be a little hard. And people might get a little bit upset, but it goes back to, I think a lot about building equity with people.
Yeah.
Have you invested with people? Have you, not to get off topic, but like I watch our CEO today. His name's Kevin Blair, and he's the CEO over this Pinnacle Synovus that we've merged. And you talking about the giftings that he has when he came to Statesboro a couple months ago to a team member event, and I watched him talk to about every teammate we have with authenticity, with sincerity, with genuine care, to just engage. And I think about people like that where, man, you want to be around those people. And so when it goes to having to make those tough convictions about your conviction, like for me, a lot of that is that too was built up over time, right? As I've grown and matured in the Lord and those things, then so as you said, sometimes those things are just, they're absolutes, right? I got to I'm sticking here. I have to. And I have to get to a place where it's just not everybody's going to get it, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to agree with it. Not everybody's going to be on board, but that's okay.
That's right.
And that was all, especially as you're younger and or at least for me, as I was younger, that was a little more important than what it probably is today.
Yeah.
I realized not everybody's going to love me. I wish they would, but sometimes we're going to make people mad and things are going to go wrong, and they may take it personal, even though it's not personal. And I have to be okay with that. And I've gotten to that point in life. It doesn't mean that things still don't bother me or hurt my feelings. They do, but I have to let that go pretty quickly, right? And it goes back to me personally: is my heart in the right place? Do I have pure intentions? And if I do, then I can live with that, right? And I have to. And the cool thing about it is the people that do know me and care, they're going to run with me. And I've had that happen, whether it's at work, whether it's family. When you run through those tough seasons, you truly see who's with you.
For sure.
And I've had that too. So that's a fun thing, right? It's a reinforcement of, man, I got some good people around me.
Yeah. Last question, I guess, on leadership, and we'll transition to the faith aspect of it. Just real simply, what advice would you give someone stepping into leadership for the first time? If there was something you would say to them.
I would say that be genuine, be honest, walk with integrity, and just be transparent.
Yeah.
Right. And then really you have to find a way. If this isn't in your DNA, or if you think you're too big, but you have to find a way to be interested in your people.
I think that's so good. And that's something that over the years and even now I'm realizing more and more and more is the power of truly listening. Just truly listening, even if you don't say anything.
Yeah, I was meeting with a group yesterday, actually, and one of the things we were talking about leadership, and one of the things somebody said was when they saw out of the best boss they've ever had was that person was a really, really good listener.
Yeah, there's something about it, and authentically, and honestly listening and caring.
That's right.
About what's being said.
That's right.
And I think that goes so far.
Yeah, that was interesting. That when that person said that, and then I also had somebody else was talking about just a really good communicator. And I asked, do they mean like publicly in a group? But they said all of it, right?
Yeah.
Be willing to communicate, especially if you're leading a team. You have to. We talk a lot about. You think about casting vision and those kind of things, but you have to be able to communicate that well. You have to get people to see it and to get on board with it. And so those are some other things I think about
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shifting gears a little bit to faith journey. And I know a little bit of this, but I want to kind of prompt you with some questions. The first one is just, what did faith look like in your life growing up?
So faith for me was, I had a great mother and father, and we went to church every Sunday, and they made me and my brother go to youth group, and we probably weren't as engaged as we should have been, but they were adamant. They were really good parents, and they encouraged that in a way that we couldn't say no until we finally got old enough. And I think we wore them down.
Wore them out.
We said no more than they said yes, but
that's why you never strayed from it.
Yeah, that's right. Never strayed. Never strayed. But I did. But what I was thinking about was that I do remember my mom reading her Bible a lot. Mm-hmm. And the reason I remember is she had a Bible, it was this big, and it had 4 different versions on each page. And so it was humongous. But man, she read and she underlined and she highlighted, and it was, oh man, she was chasing the Lord, And so I was fortunate to grow up in a home where we did go to church. We were active in those things. And so the example was set for me of what a Jesus follower was like.
Yeah, and I think because you do have great parents, and they've been almost like second parents for me, just growing up together with around them and being married in the same family. And I think one of the things I look at especially with your dad, is just the discipline that was instilled
for sure
in you that has carried over from work to faith and everything.
I agree.
That I just see with him, he being a very disciplined man, but that certainly has translated over to you as well. When was the defining moment for you that your faith became personal to you? Like it became your faith. Your parents had taken you to church and and all of that. But when did it become personal?
Yeah, it's funny because in the Methodist Church, we went through the whole 6th grade consecration, and I was pretty engaged in that, and it was pretty real, but it wasn't real. It wasn't real.
Yeah.
And it was probably what a 6th grader could comprehend to some degree, but it was not life-changing.
Yeah.
And then really when Nancy and I got married and married into the family, we were back active in church, and So the Lord really began to stir, and then you know the story, but for me it was at the Walk to Emmaus.
Yeah.
It was that weekend was life-changing for me, where I really got a taste of what the Lord was like. And from that point on, it was never the same. It was just, it was incredible, really. It was just everything you could think about for me. It turned me inside out, right? My heart was crushed. He took me and tore it up and came out, and I came out a different person.
Yeah.
And the cool thing was watching that. And what was so important to me, I mean, that was probably the weekend, but then it was the time after that we all spent. There was a group of us, as you know, that really went, we were zealous for the Lord, probably to a fault, but we did, man. We chased it, and we held each other accountable, and we wanted to grow, and we were digging and learning and all those things that were just so impactful for me. And I think the timing on that for me was right. I mean, I looking back, I would have got it at 6th grade or 12th grade or whenever, but I'm so thankful the Lord really touched me at that point, because that was when I'd first had my first child, Davis. And it was incredible. And so it really set the tone for me, not only raising it, but in my marriage, right? It helped me understand about being the leader of my household. And I had some work to do to catch up in that regard. It was because up to that point, I probably was not. Nancy led me probably more than I led her when it came to faith-based things. And thankfully, they did with me and you. They encouraged us enough to go on that walk, and it was a special, special time for us, or for me.
Yeah. And people who've heard me talk about it have heard the story somewhat. But, the only reason I went on the walk that week, and that's the weekend that I got saved, was because you were going. And I felt like if I'm ever going to make it through this thing, now's the time to do it, to get Susan off my back. And then I'm like, we'll be that, we'll hang in there tough, and we'll get through this thing and get back to normal on Monday. And then I remember Friday, I look over there across the room, and I'm still kind of not in it. I'm not singing. I'm not really participating. I look over there, and you got tears in your eyes over there singing the songs and everything. And I'm like, man, he's sold out on me.
No, I did.
And I know the Lord started working on you pretty quick, and then it took probably, Saturday is when it got me, and after that, I was so broke up I couldn't look anybody in the eyes, or else I'd just start crying. And
I get it.
I went over there so prideful and everything.
Me too, man.
And then it just broke me down.
We were broken, buddy. It didn't take long for me. You're right. It was incredible, though.
And I think about, too, coming back, and, we talk about community here at the church a lot, and how important community is. And from the original vision document that I wrote for the church as we were getting ready, it says in there that we would always judge success by how many people were in community, not by how many people were here on a Sunday. And really, the importance of community that was written into that document has really been written into the DNA of our church, came from us.
That's right.
And I remember, and you said we were maybe a little too zealous. I remember, we met every Monday night at 6:30 in what we called the upper room, the room above your garage. And Susan and I were living in Waynesboro. And at that time, for a lot of that time, I was working in Augusta. And so I would drive from Augusta to your house in Statesboro. We'd meet for 2 or 3 hours at that time. And then I would drive back to Waynesboro. And so I think about that and how important that was, because I think in maybe 3 years, we might have missed 2 or 3 Monday nights. Because even when we went to the beach back then, on Monday, we would still get together and meet. And that's where the importance of community really got ingrained in me, because I know I wouldn't have made it through that time without it. And there weren't many of them that could hang with us at that time because we were so legalistic and judgmental. And you talk about making mistakes and I mean, I was like a bull in a china
Me too,
shop,
man.
man. And
Weren't
just, and you look at it, but
we? Couldn't help it.
no, we were
The Lord
fired
had us,
up.
man.
I mean,
We had.
it was just our zeal.
We
was
always
so
said that
much,
more zeal than wisdom.
our zeal was 10 times greater than our wisdom. And
Boy, it was fun though. Those were
yeah.
good times. I mean, and they were so important. I just, and you say that about community. I mean, it is. It was and is so important because it's, man, it's just life giving. You're encouraging each other, and you're talking about failures, right? It's just doing life together.
we didn't have many failures back then, though. In our own
A
mind.
lot of other people do.
Everybody else had them, but we
We
didn't.
were pretty critical. We had a little bit of a critical spirit. But,
We could find so many faults with other people we couldn't see our own.
man. But how fun! You think back, just even the growth in those things, right? How much we learn. You learn over time, and just takes that, or at least for some of us. For me, it certainly took it and still does.
Yeah, those were good days, though.
Those were fun.
And certainly learned from a lot of mistakes, but just really, really special times of growth and experiencing God, and just the excitement of that was super and very special. So, when you think back through your journey, Chad, what season of life maybe tested your faith the most?
It was interesting. I think probably like having kids and raising kids was incredible to me. It was probably the biggest joy in life for me was having children, and just being able to be with them. But there's some challenges in that too, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, as they get a little older and they get minds of their own and they begin to express some of that. I mean, there were some challenges in that was tough, right? And that would probably be some of it. But what's happened now, what's fun is then you kind of make it through those teenage years, and but then you begin to see them as young adults, and that's fun because you kind of made it through, and not that they're perfect and they're going to figure it out too, you hope. But just knowing that all those years and time that you put in and the things you tried to do, and you just hope a lot of that will someday show up. And sometimes we have the privilege of seeing that. You know, we get to watch them as young people, at least at this point in life, and go, man, they actually got some of those things. Because when you're in the fire, sometimes that can be quite the challenge.
So we, in this church, we have a ton of people right now who are in the fire.
Yeah.
And really and truthfully, I believe your mid-30s are some of the toughest years of your life, because for so many of our folks right now, they're really getting their careers going. Some of them are starting businesses. They've got their marriage. They've got young children up to maybe preteen age children. And, there's just a lot.
Yeah.
Those are, and I tell a lot of, because I talk to a lot of young men who are going through those years, and I'm like, look, being a dad is the hardest, greatest thing you'll ever do, because it's not easy. And so when you talk about those years that were like, how did you get through that season? Because there's a lot of people in our church who are in that season. We've got a lot of these young people and that are in their 30s, and some of them are still popping out babies, and some of them, have a little bit older. But like, how do you get through it?
Well, I have a good wife.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
that is incredible to watch her mother. And she, as much as I love my kids and try to be the best dad, she was the best mother. And just her balance and her calm and those things are so good. But for me, it was I just had to really, people talk about praying for your kids. And we do that. And you do that in earnest. And then I just had to continue to rely on the thought that, man, these are God's kids.
Yeah.
And He's entrusted them to me. And so I'm going to give them all I got.
Everything.
But those tough days, they become more God's. I'm like, Lord.
You become like Moses. You're like, that God, these are your people.
That's right. I just kept, I always kind of had to hang on to, man, raise them up in the ways of the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And they'll return there, and I think about even for me in my journey that it wasn't always pristine, right? There were some wayward times for me, but the Lord steered me back. And so it was funny because of some of the things I did and how I behaved in those high school and college years. For me, it was, even though you're still a dad and you have high expectations and discipline matters and all that, I didn't let some of those other things get me too worked up, right? Because we're kids and we're going to make mistakes and we're going to do that. But it's, you love them, right? You love them into the kingdom. The goodness of God brings men to repentance. But I always thought when people said that for me, I'm like, a lot of times we have to be the goodness of God, right? And we have to show that and live that, and you just keep loving them into the kingdom. And even when you want to strangle them and pull your hair out, and you have those days where you just go, man, how did I go wrong? Or why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And we had some of those days and it was tough, right? And there were days where Nancy would have to talk me off the ledge, and there were days where I'd have to kind of talk her off a little bit. But thankfully, we got partners that we walk through that with. And that's, and other than the grace of God, that's how you make it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's one day at a time.
It is.
And you just grind it out. And like you said, you realize that like, that's your job.
That's it. But that was, to me, that was the coolest thing, man. Not a greater responsibility in life than having, when I had my first kid, it was absolutely mind-blowing, and the responsibility level just went off the roof. But how fortunate are we that the Lord gives us that chance, right? To have these kids that idolize you and look up to you and run across the house and want to hug you on that bad day. Right. That tough day at work all of a sudden becomes nothing when that little one comes and embraces you. And
it's funny. I remember a good friend of mine, and she's younger than I am, but a friend of mine who they had their first child, and man, it was killing them. And it was at baby stage. They're not sleeping, and he's going through it. And I remember he came in my office one day, and he sits down and he's just crying. And if he listens to this, he'll know. I mean, we laugh about it still today, and this has been 20 years ago, or close to it. Probably like 15, 16 years ago. And he said, he's like, man, I don't know what to do. I don't know if we're gonna make it. And I said, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna put your big boy pants on.
yes.
And you're going to go home, and you're going to be a man, and you're going to be a husband, and you're going to be a dad, and it's going to be fine. And he's crying, and he's like, through his tears, he's like, it's like I see my big boy pants in the corner, but I just don't want to put them on, And we still laugh about that today.
So
but,
good.
I mean, some of it is just like, that's when it's time to really grow up, because it's not about you anymore.
No, it's not.
And
That's exactly
never has been, really.
No.
But especially then, it becomes obvious. So anyway, but I think that's helpful for a lot of people in our church, because we do have a lot who are in that stage of parenting and in their faith journey with that.
And what I love about it is that, so now I get to watch Davis and my cat.
Yeah.
Right. So my son, who's got our first grandchild, and it just is so mindful to me of like, man, we say this a lot and cut up, but that's a young man's sport.
Yeah.
A young woman's sport.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could do that at this point.
Oh gosh, man.
But that's thankfully we're young and tough. We can grind through it. But at this point in life, it'd be tough.
Yeah. You find a way.
Yep.
Just find a way. Who's been the biggest spiritual influence on your journey, and why have they had that much influence in your life?
As I said, my parents were fantastic, right? So early on, the foundation was set. And then, like, Bruce was a big impact.
Absolutely.
But you have been huge for me.
Yeah, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I mean, you have. I mean, we started that journey together, and I've just watched. And luckily, I've been to be a part of it.
Yeah, huge part of it.
Some capacity. But just being under your leadership has been incredible, right? And we've, where our paths did go different, there, in other words, that you were called to this ministry, and I was kind of kept my job and still felt like, and there has been ministry in that, but just to watch how much you've grown and how you lead our church and how you've gotten us to this point, it's just incredible. And so you played a huge part in my life. And then there was people along the way that when we met in those groups so much early on was really good. And then being with a group of elders that I'm fortunate enough to be with to discern and just learn and be a part of that. All of those things are just part of my faith journey and part of my learning and who has had impact on me.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's weird for you to ask me that with you sitting right here. But you have been. You are probably the most impactful. You really are.
Well,
and
I appreciate
don't tell
that.
you
And
that
same
enough.
here, though.
Yeah.
For you, I know I would have not made it through those early years without you, and not through a lot of the church years without you and the other elders, because we obviously have been through stuff and some really challenging times. And for me, you guys were the ones I could always go to and say, I'm struggling. And y'all walked with me through some really, really hard times, and I'm so super just grateful for that. Because it's not easy. And I think that's the thing that people have to understand is it's not easy, but it's worth it in the end. And
I would say this too, that you're right. And I think I've learned that through the years, and especially as a young person, as you grow up and you're in the church and you watch, and people try to kid about, well, dang, the pastor just works on Sunday, those kind of things. That it is not an easy job.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you take this job seriously like you do, man, there is a big burden, right? And that's heavy. And we're talking about people's eternity and salvation and just caring and nurturing. And those things are real. And we as people, we're messy, right? And we have problems. And I've watched you work through so much of that with people and just poured out. And that's hard. And for that, I'm grateful for our community, our church, our community, but just for you and all the folks that are in leadership that have to, that I shouldn't say have to have the opportunity to do that, but it's not without cost.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
It's tough stuff. It's real things, and but it's also beautiful and it's rewarding and all those things that come with that. But
that's right.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it too, and it's been a fun journey the last 25 plus years or whatever it's been that we've been walking this out. How has your because we talked about the zeal early on and all that. How is your and the judgmentalism and all that stuff? How has your understanding of God changed as you've matured? Like from those early days and how you see God now, how you know God now.
I think that for me, it's probably been there. I mean, I've learned so much over the years, right? And you learn kind of books, things, and head knowledge, but just the heart aspect for me, and just knowing that God loves us, right?
Yeah.
And He cares for us, and that even sometimes as wretched as we can be, that He still yearns to be with us and
Yeah.
to love us. And it's to me, the walk has got to be there's got to be consistency, right? And that but also it's just, are we willing to? I'll never forget, somebody always said that, you either growing or you're dying.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Day in and day out and over time. And I tell you, the people that I admire and I think about a lot, there's some people that I've watched, and Bruce was one of them. I know I keep bringing him up, but just their faith journey, they just steady,
It's just
consistent.
up and to the right.
That's right. They just were just unbelievably committed.
Yeah.
And it's a Jody Stubbs of the world.
Yeah.
Steady, unbelievable. I mean, and I just...
Not to interrupt you, but to bring up Jody's name, and of course he's impacted so many people in our community, and a lot of people will recognize that name. But I remember I met with him for a good while, and just as a mentor and encourager, and I was going through a tough time, and one day we were sitting eating breakfast, and he said, if you're not getting shot at, it means you're not flying over the target. And I was like, well, I guess at least I know I'm over the target, but this getting shot at stuff kind of sucks.
That's hard.
It
is. There's
but
something
but again, just to say, he was and has been a huge influence on a lot of people's lives.
And I think for me too is, I think too, as you get a little older, you have to guard against apathy a little bit, and feeling like, well, yeah, I've seen this before, or those kind of things that, man, you just have to trust that the Lord's going to continue to pave the way, and there is something too of a constant filling, right? Or are we going back to the trough to get filled again and again and again, so we don't run out of that energy? You don't feel like, golly, this is all there is, or I've kind of accomplished things, and that's what I think is so impressive about those guys that are the generation ahead of us.
Yeah,
they did it from here all the way to here.
Well,
we're kind of here, right? Or we're just really getting going good.
I look at Mr. Butch,
yes,
McKenzie, who we did a podcast with about 3 weeks ago. I mean, in his upper 70s, and just as zealous for the Lord today as he's ever been.
Yeah.
And that's how I want to finish.
Me too.
Me too.
And
you look at that and how incredible that is. One of the things that I think I've matured in the most in my understanding of God, I think about where Jesus is talking about all who are weary and heavy laden, come to me, and you'll find rest for your souls. And he says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And he says, for I'm gentle and humble at heart. And I think one of the things that I've learned since those days that were so full of zeal and rushing to get to the next, God's way more gentle than I think I used to see him.
Yeah.
Just more gentle, understanding, than probably what I would have thought years ago.
Yeah, and another word that comes to my mind when you said that is patient too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? God's patient. He's patient with us.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing that he is, right? Because how often do we either get frustrated or want to write something off? And I think that's something too, that as we grow a little bit and mature a little more, that you become more patient, right? And saying, look, let's don't give up on these things,
That's right.
Let's don't turn our attention somewhere else. Let's continue to plow ahead.
Yeah.
Let's continue to be consistent in what we're doing, and let's be patient and see what the Lord does with it.
That's good. Well, we'll go ahead and try to wind this down. We've been going for a few minutes now. And one last question for you. If someone's listening today and they feel distant from God right now, what would you tell them?
I think I'd probably just tell him that he's there, right? And to trust in him. It's that old saying we learned when we were little kids that if you feel distant from God, guess who moved?
Yeah.
Right? And I probably wouldn't say that to somebody directly, but I think there's something to that, right?
Yeah.
That for all of us as we walk along, that there'll be times that we may feel a little more like we're in the desert. But I think that's when we really press in, right? And two, that's where patience comes in, that trust that the Lord knows where you're at and that He sees you, and that He'll meet you where you're at. And people go through a lot of things, right? So that's easy to say. It's hard to do. But I do believe, and then I trust that for us as believers, and that, man, we got to fill those gaps for people sometimes, right?
Sure.
If they're distant from the Lord, then, man, I pray that the Lord puts somebody in their way.
Somebody in their path.
That's right. Somebody that will encourage them and trust that that's happening, right? And believe it. And that's been an experience for me. I think it's, man, if you will really lean in, then He'll be there.
Yeah. I like what you said. You said He sees you.
Yeah.
And it's not a Santa Claus trying to catch you.
Yeah.
He sees you. He knows you.
Yes.
You're not forgotten.
No.
And I love that. That's a really good place to, I think, wind it up. But seek the Lord while He may be found, and if you seek Him with all your heart, you'll find Him. Amen. And so I appreciate the time, man. Appreciate who you are, your friendship, the journey. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been good.
Thanks for the wisdom you shared today, and just your heart and honesty in that. And so hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you've gotten something from it, and pray that the Lord blesses you as you continue to seek after Him.